The first thing that felt wrong was the smell. Not even a bad smell, just different. Like rubber or disinfectant mixed with something sour, drifting up from the hospital down the street. I passed it every day on my way to work. Usually it just smelled like coffee from the little cafe on the corner, but not this week. I'm Dylan. I work in tech support, which sounds like I have my life together, but it really just means I sit in a cubicle, fix people's computers, and eat leftover pizza for breakfast. My girlfriend, Ashley, is a nursing student. She's at St. Anthony's almost every day, 12-hour shifts, sometimes 16. She keeps saying she's just tired. Everybody's tired. But lately, everyone's tired in a way that makes you want to lock your door. On Tuesday, my neighbor came out with blood on his shoes. He's a retired math teacher. He waved at me, and I waved back, but I watched him go back inside and leave red smears on his doorknob. I tried to forget it. I really did. I went to my car, pretended not to see the ambulance parked across the hospital entrance with 2 soldiers standing by the doors. Soldiers, not paramedics. That's not normal. Driving to work, the radio station kept cutting out. My phone signal flickered between bars, and when it finally loaded, there were 5 missed texts from my mom and 1 from Ashley. Mom just sent, "Are you okay? Something's happening. News said to stay home if you can." She always overreacts. But Ashley's text was shorter, and it stuck with me. "If you see anything weird, don't go to the hospital." I didn't answer her right away. When I walked into the office, half the desks were empty. Jerry, the guy who always talks too loud on calls, wasn't there. I actually missed him for a second. Instead, the only sound was people coughing. Someone coughed so hard I thought they'd pass out. I kept glancing at my phone, hoping for another text, but nothing. My boss came in late, pale and sweating. He just told everyone to keep working, don't worry about the internet rumors, and left his coffee untouched. He's never done that. Then, around 10 a.m., the phones went down. Not just the office lines, nobody's cell worked. I checked Twitter. News was everywhere, but it didn't make sense. Power outage. Chemical leak. Is it terrorism? CDC says to remain calm. No answers. No one admitted it was anything more than a bad day. By lunch, nobody wanted to go out. We all just stared at the window, watching the parking lot. Another military van pulled up in front of the hospital, sat there for an hour, then left with sirens. Still no news. I called Ashley again, but it went straight to voicemail. I left her a stupid message, tried to sound brave. I said, "I'm coming to get you after your shift." But I didn't mean it. I didn't want to go near that place. At 3 p.m., someone screamed outside. I'm not talking movie scream, but real, ugly, high-pitched panic. A woman ran past our building, bleeding from the arm, waving at every car. Nobody stopped. I watched, frozen, as she turned the corner toward the hospital and disappeared. Nobody called 911 because the lines didn't work. We all just stared at each other. At 4 p.m., Ashley's mom called the office, crying so hard I could barely understand. She said Ashley was missing, left her post at the hospital. Her bag and jacket were still in the break room, but she was gone. My stomach dropped. I left work without saying anything. The sky was too bright, like the world didn't know something was wrong yet. I walked home. The city felt wrong, empty, but with too many cars abandoned in the street. A man in scrubs ran past me, sweating, carrying nothing but a phone in his hand, and vanished down an alley. Another ambulance, but no siren. Back home, I locked the door and checked the news again. Nothing but talking heads and hashtags. Then a video started trending. It was from inside a hospital. Shaky, blurry. Somebody running down a hallway, screaming, "Don't let them touch you." Something slammed into the camera and the video ended. I sat on my bed, holding my phone, not sure if I should call the police or just hide. I tried texting my mom, then Ashley again. No response. I looked out the window and saw 2 people dragging something heavy into the hospital loading bay. Their uniforms were red with blood. I closed the blinds. I went to the kitchen, got a knife, and sat at the table. I kept thinking about Ashley's text. If you see anything weird, don't go to the hospital. That night, I heard sirens, gunshots, and screams. I didn't sleep. I kept my phone plugged in, waiting for any message, but the screen just glowed with the same 3 missed texts and a dying battery icon. By morning, the hospital was silent. Nobody came out. Nobody went in. My neighbor's bloody shoes were still by his door, and I realized the math teacher hadn't been seen since yesterday. I didn't go to work. I just sat there, waiting for the world to tell me what to do. Nobody did. All I had was that text from Ashley, and I kept thinking, something is off. The only thing I knew for sure was that I wasn't going anywhere near that hospital. Not for anything. I woke up on the living room floor with the TV still humming static and the knife clenched in my hand. My mouth was dry and my head throbbed. For a second, I hoped it was all just some weird dream. Then I heard the sirens again, but farther off now, fading into the city. The hospital at the end of the block looked dead, not just quiet, but like nobody had ever worked there. The lights were out. The ambulance was gone. My phone was dead too. I charged it, but the signal bars just spun and spun. I opened the front door a crack and checked the hallway. Nobody. The neighbor's bloody shoes were still there, the stain now a dark brown. I checked for mail, but the mailbox was empty except for a pizza coupon and a crumpled emergency flyer. If you feel sick, do not go to the hospital. Await further instructions. At noon, something started banging on the front door of our building. At first, I thought it was someone desperate for help. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman in a hospital gown, her arms streaked with blood, mouth open wide like she couldn't get enough air. She slammed herself against the glass, over and over. I almost opened the door. She looked like Ashley. It wasn't her. Her hair was wrong, her face was older. But for a second, I was sure it was. Then her head jerked, and she snarled, teeth red and broken, and threw herself at the door again. I stepped back and grabbed the knife. I called out, "Hey, do you need help?" She didn't answer, just kept banging and banging. Then I heard more footsteps. 2 men from my floor, guys I'd seen at the mailbox, ran up the stairs. "Get away from the door," one yelled. He had a baseball bat. The other guy, the one from 3B, looked at me and whispered, "Don't let them in. They're sick. They bite." That was the first time I heard it said out loud. I wanted to laugh. Bite? But the woman slammed against the door so hard it cracked. The guy with the bat pushed me back, and together we jammed a chair under the doorknob. We stood there, listening to her shriek, until finally the noise faded down the hallway. I realized then, she wasn't alone. There were others. Down on the street, I saw them, moving. People in hospital gowns, limping, arms stiff, eyes wild. They weren't yelling for help. They were hunting. The city was finally, officially, broken. I tried calling my mom again. Still nothing. I messaged my best friend Kevin, who lives 2 blocks away. "You seen this?" He didn't answer, but a minute later I heard a knock on my door. It was Kevin, sweating, out of breath, his glasses fogged up. He looked worse than I'd ever seen him. He came in and collapsed on my couch. "Dude, it's not just here. My building, somebody bit the landlord. He tried to get in my apartment, screaming. I had to lock myself in the bathroom. Then it got quiet. I ran here. You got any water?" I handed him a bottle, shaking. "You think it's a virus? Or some kind of drug?" I asked, because I wanted it to be anything except what I was starting to believe. Evan wiped his mouth. "I don't know. But the news said the National Guard is blocking off all the hospitals. They're telling people not to go there. Like it's the center of it or something." We spent the next hour shoving furniture in front of the windows. I turned on every lamp. then turned them off again because I didn't want to be seen from outside. I heard someone screaming out in the street, then glass breaking, and then nothing. We made a plan, just me and Kevin. If things got worse, we'd head out together, find Ashley if she was still out there. I packed a bag, water, granola bars, my pocket knife, and an old baseball bat I found in the closet. Kevin grabbed a frying pan and laughed, but it didn't sound right. "Man, this is like a bad movie," he said, "except nobody's coming to save us." The power went out as the sun started setting. It was only 5, but it might as well have been midnight. I lit candles and watched the hallway through the peephole. I counted every cough, every shuffle. At some point, the banging on the front door started again, slow, steady, inhuman. I tried to tune it out. I tried to pretend none of it was happening. Then my phone vibrated. One message. No name, just a number I didn't know. "Don't trust anyone bitten. Don't let them in. Lock everything. They're not dead, but they're not alive." That was all it said. I showed it to Kevin and he just shook his head. "Dude, we need to get out of here," he whispered, "before they get in." A scream echoed from the stairwell. I saw movement, someone stumbling up, covered in blood, the neighbor from 3B. The guy who'd helped with the door. His eyes were gone, and his mouth was full of blood, chewing on his own fingers. He charged at the glass, and this time it shattered. Kevin yelled. I grabbed the bat and swung, connecting with something soft and horrible. We ran, slamming my apartment door behind us, shoving the couch in front. I heard more footsteps, more moaning. The building wasn't safe, not anymore. We looked at each other, breathing hard, and I realized there was no more pretending. The infection wasn't just real, it was here. And the hospital was ground zero. Anyone still alive inside those walls wasn't coming out human. For the first time in my life, I didn't care about my job, or rent, or bills. The only thing that mattered was staying alive, and the one thing I was sure of, we had to stay away from the hospitals. I've never been in a real fight before, not until last night. I always thought if it came down to it, I'd freeze or run. But when my neighbor from 3B crashed through the glass with blood pouring down his face, all I felt was this animal panic. I swung the bat, not even thinking. The sound it made wasn't like in the movies. It was wet, hollow, and it stuck in my head. I didn't sleep after that. Every noise in the hallway sounded like footsteps coming for us. Kevin paced the apartment, clutching the frying pan like it was a shield. "We can't stay here," he kept saying, voice shaking. "They'll get in, man. It's just a matter of time." I wanted to argue, to pretend we could just wait it out, but I saw his point. The building wasn't safe, not after what happened downstairs, and I couldn't get Ashley out of my head. What if she was out there, hurt, hiding, waiting for me? I couldn't just do nothing. We packed up what we could. Kevin had an old camping backpack, and I shoved bottles of water, protein bars, a first aid kit, and some extra clothes inside. I grabbed my bat, feeling sick every time I looked at it. The edge was crusted red. I kept telling myself I had no choice, but it still felt wrong. Before we left, I taped a note to my door. "Kevin and Dylan went looking for Ashley. If you're alive, be careful. Don't trust the hospitals. Don't trust anyone who's been bitten." I didn't know if anyone would see it. I just needed to do something that felt like hope. The stairwell was dark, full of debris and broken glass. We moved fast, sticking close, listening for anything that sounded human. Or not. On the ground floor, we peeked outside. The street was a mess. A car had crashed into a hydrant, water spraying up in an arc, pooling in the gutter. 2 bodies lay face down in the intersection, not moving. A dog barked somewhere far away. Sirens wailed in the distance, then stopped. We slipped out the side door and stuck to the alleys. I never realized how empty a city could sound. Every step echoed. Every window looked like eyes watching us. We saw two more people, infected, whatever you want to call them, wandering near the hospital loading bay, clothes stained red, eyes blank and hungry. We kept our heads down and ducked behind a dumpster until they passed. Our plan, if you could call it that, was to check Ashley's apartment. Maybe she made it home. Maybe she was waiting for me like I was waiting for her. Every block we crossed felt like a mile. I kept checking my phone even though I knew there wouldn't be any new messages. It was just something to do with my hands. We made it to her place without being seen. The door was locked, but I had a key. Inside, everything was exactly the way she left it. Shoes by the door, coffee mug in the sink, her hoodie on the couch. For a second, it almost felt normal. I found her phone charging on the counter, but the screen was cracked. I checked her messages anyway. Nothing new, just our old texts. The last one from her, "If you see anything weird, don't go to the hospital." I found her ID badge on the kitchen table. My stomach twisted. Why would she leave it? Kevin paced, staring at the blinds, muttering to himself. "We can't stay here," he kept saying. "They'll find us. We need somewhere safer. Maybe the school or the church." I knew he was right, but I kept hoping Ashley would just walk in, say I was overreacting, laugh at my paranoia. Then someone started banging on the apartment door. We froze. This wasn't random. The knocks were sharp, desperate. I peeked through the peephole. It was our friend Mara, Ashley's roommate. She looked alive, but her arm was wrapped in a towel soaked with blood. I hesitated. Kevin hissed, "Don't let her in, dude, she's bitten." I wanted to ignore him, to help her, but my hands shook. Mara started crying. "Please, let me in, they're coming, please." Her voice broke, and behind her I saw two infected stumble into the hallway, mouths open, eyes glazed. I had seconds to choose. I did what I had to do. I slid the chain across the door and yelled, "I'm sorry, I can't." Mara pounded the door, sobbing, but then the infected grabbed her and dragged her away. Her screams cut off too fast. Kevin just stared at me, jaw clenched. "You did what you had to," he said, but I could see the judgment in his eyes. The apartment was no longer safe. We grabbed our stuff and bolted out the back, avoiding the hallway. The city felt smaller now, tighter, like every street was a trap. We saw smoke rising from the direction of the church. Someone had set it on fire, probably trying to keep the infected out. The old family shelter on Main was overrun, people pounding at the windows for help that wouldn't come. At one point, we tried to take refuge in an abandoned gas station. The windows were already smashed. Inside, we found a woman huddled behind the counter, whispering to herself, "Stay away from hospitals. Stay away from hospitals." She barely noticed us. We took some water bottles and left her there, too afraid to help. I hated myself for it. We had to fight our way out when a group of infected found us, their hands reaching, teeth snapping. Kevin swung the frying pan with everything he had. I used the bat. It was ugly, close, desperate. When we finally made it out, Kevin was limping, blood dripping from a gash on his calf. He wouldn't look at me. "I'm fine," he snapped. "Just keep moving." We walked through the ruins of our old world. Every street was different now. Every shadow felt dangerous. We didn't talk about what we'd done or the friends we'd lost. The only thing that mattered was surviving, 1 hour at a time. By sunrise, we reached the edge of the city. The roads ahead were empty. The world changed forever. I didn't know if Ashley was alive. I didn't know if we'd make it. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever rules used to matter were gone. Now it was just us, the infected, and the thin line between who we were and what we might become. And I kept repeating the words like a prayer I didn't believe in. Stay away from hospitals. Stay away from hospitals. Stay away from hospitals. Stay away from hospitals.